and welcome to this Dice Populi bonus 5th Wednesday episode. Today we have got another Between Two Rolls for you, where Ryan Mossbarger is going to sit down and really dig into the nitty-gritty of our one and own Pat Brem and his whole mind and psyche, what he likes about D&D, Dice Populi, other, TTRPG stuff, and really just a lot of life things in general. These two go way back, so it's a very fun conversation as they dig into some details. There are going to be some mild spoilers in the back half for things like, Critical Role and The Legend of Vox Machina. So just keep an eye out for that. Nothing really story-based, but if you haven't caught up on that stuff and you want to, after the breakaway in the middle, just be aware that that might be coming in hot and fast. That said, you will have a delightful time, regardless of your status on such things. I think Ryan has put together a couple of very fun conversations, much like he did with me a couple of months ago. So I'm going to get out of the way for now. About halfway through, I will pop back in for the mid-episode breakaway as we transition out of Season of the Fractures and into something entirely new. That's enough from me. Let's hear what Ryan and Pat have to say to each other about things.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our hit podcast within a podcast, Between Two Rolls. I'm your host, Ryan Mossbarger, and today I have a very special guest, Pat Brem. Say hello, Pat.
Hello, Pat.
Ha ha! That's the classic banter
so
we look
funny.
for here. So, Pat, if you're unfamiliar with this, we're about to take a deep and dark voyage in your little cranium, and we're going to expose all your deepest and darkest secrets to an audience best measured in the tens of people. Are you ready for your the deepest shards of yourself that you always keep hidden to be exposed to the greater public?
Let's do it.
All right. So I think this is the same question I told Colin. I think this is a good starter question, especially for our crew. How do you know the other members of our podcast?
All right. So I think I'm the only one who does know all of the people.
Physically,
directly.
I think, yes.
Yeah. So I grew up in Schenectady, New York, with Colin, Chowder, and Matt all going to the same, well, I'm not sure about Chowder, actually, but I went to the same middle school with Colin, and then I went to high school with Matt Canavan and Chowder. We were mostly in different friend groups, but they kind of migrated together over time. I was on the swim team with Matt. I acted in plays with both Matt and Colin. Chowder was friends with the group of people that made the Common Geeking program, so I would hang out with him when we all got together for that stuff. And then Ryan, I met at college because he was friends with my big, Mike Goldstein, and I went to Mike's apartment, or like dorm, for an Edward 40 hands, or like a 40 thing at one point. And as soon as I walked in the door, Ryan said I needed to catch up, so I chugged a hurricane, and that was a bad decision.
Yeah, that was a bad one. I think I tried.
But his friendship was not a bad decision.
I think the thing too is like I was drinking these 40s, and I was like, I'll finish my second 40 before you can finish your first, Pat. And it did not go well for me. It was so bubbly. I got so burpy, and then you finished your first, and then we both were having bad times because I could not stop burping, and I felt like I don't think mine was a hurricane. I think mine was like just a simple malt liquor. It was
mine
not
was
a
definitely
fortified.
Hurricane.
Yours was like a high gravity or something like that.
Yeah.
Mine was just a simple 40.
But yeah, and then we like worked together in the shop for a lot and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so
you did graduate before I did, which was sad, but you know,
true.
I think you didn't get me into D&D necessarily, but we played a little bit. We had that one shot in the machine shop, which was interesting,
scarring,
to say the least.
To say the least. But yeah, so we went to the same school. We were also kind of doing. I think you were mechanical, or were you aerospace?
I was mechanical with the concentration in aero because they don't have the fucking
I was the same
minor or whatever.
We were treading down the same path, but I think you were 2 years below me.
I graduated in 2016.
Yes, so you were 2 years below me. We hung out a decent chunk in the later years, I feel like, and we also worked together, which was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
And our first joint venture into Dungeons and Dragons was a very scarring one shot that, to put a blanket statement on it, was sexually infused in an uncomfortable way.
Yep.
And I think that's enough. I think that's all we have to say.
I think so too.
It was a weird one, but yeah, you probably are because I've never met any of the other cast in person. I've not been in the same room. I've not even probably been in the same state at the same time as anybody else on the podcast.
Most likely not, because they pretty much just spend all their time in New York, except Matt's traveling a lot recently.
Kind of interesting. I think we almost all of us started out in Common Geeking Program. So what made you want to be in podcasts like Common Geeking Program and eventually Dice Populi?
Honestly, I didn't want to be, but like
The fame found you.
it was more like all my friends were doing this thing, and I figured, I could join in, I could be funny, it would be interesting. So I started doing it, and over time I stopped really being interested in the Common Geeking Program aspect of it. As many people would notice, I haven't been on an episode in quite a long time.
Same. It's been like 2 years now.
Right. The book club common reading program type formula is not really my bag, but I do like comedy and I like being creative. So when when Colin said, hey, I want to do an actual play podcast, I know you've been a DM in the past, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, that'd be fun. And then we all got together, had a good time. R.I.P. Josh, but Chatter's filling in nicely.
I liked doing the Common Geeking Program because I feel like I'm a bit of a motor mouth when it comes to subjects that I'm very interested in, and I can talk about them a lot. But it's also one of those things too where it's, especially now because we have a hard enough time scheduling Dice Populi stuff. I couldn't imagine trying to schedule anything else on top.
I mean, they do it very well. I feel like Jeff just says, hey, who wants to record a podcast? And then 2 other people are like, I'll do it. And then they just fucking hop in a channel and do it.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot more lax. Like when I was doing it a lot, and I think when you were doing it a lot, there was like a script you had to read.
Yeah.
There was a format. Like it was very precise. And it was a little nerve-wracking to get through.
The other thing is I don't consume as much media as they do on a regular basis. Like I will regularly not see movies in theaters and wait for them to come out. I still haven't seen, what's it called? Fucking
Spider-Man?
I have seen Spider-Man. I have not seen the Justice League Snyder cut. I haven't seen a couple other things that have been. I haven't watched Peacemaker yet. Like all these things.
I have a brave take. You can skip the Snyder cut. It's like it's like fine.
It's so long. I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, it's way too long. It should have just been a mini series. And also the 4 is like, oh, I'm gonna do it. What is it, like a 4x3, like a standard like 80s setup? I was like, fuck you. Like that's so stupid. I will say though, as somebody that has recently got into Peacemaker and I've been watching it, highly recommend. If you did you watch the most recent Suicide Squad, like the kind of soft reboot they did?
No, I haven't seen that either. So I gotta watch that and then I'll watch that.
That's also on HBO. I highly recommend that one. That's pretty good. If you liked the concept of the first one but did not like the execution, you'll probably like the new one.
Yeah, I'm sure I will like it because I like James Gunn's stuff in general, but I just I'm trying to finish several other things. I haven't finished Expanse yet. That's on the list.
So good.
I haven't finished the Ozarks yet. I gotta watch that. Abby and I still have not finished our Ted Lasso watch through, even though I've seen it all. She has not.
Yeah, me and Jasmine watched all the Ted Lasso together. We bought an Apple Plus subscription just to watch Ted Lasso.
It's very good.
We went on a trip recently to go see her parents, and it was on
the plane. Yep, that's how they got me too.
Oh my god, it's the first 2 episodes, and it get
I know.
It's so delightful. It's such a nice little palate cleanser of a show, and it's so well shot, and all the characters are so well done and interesting. You're like, fuck, I got home and I told her we should just get Apple Plus so we can finish out Ted Lasso.
Right.
Yeah,
I got it for free because I got a new phone and they give you a year of it for free. But
oh, nice. Yeah, that would have been nice. We did not have that option, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's really good. And then they got another show that's coming out that's like a New Year's party where somebody dies and it's like a whodunit, but it's funny.
I did see that. I'm interested in that. But let's run down some of the other stuff you're into the Expanse. I just finished the Expanse a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm reading the books. Are you super big into the Expanse, or are you just kind of so?
I really like the show. I'm in season 5, episode 10 right now. So, what's his face? Amos and not Julie. Who's their sister? God, the Mao.
Yeah, Julie.
I can't remember her name.
I want to say it's Jules, but it's not Jules. They call her Peaches in the show.
They call her Peaches. Yeah. So they just launched back to Luna. We found out the fucking Rocinante is now suspicious that the distress call that Naomi left is false or she's like still okay, but
Yeah.
there's a trap going on. It's about to get hectic.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to finish this one out so that I can go watch season 6. But
season 6 is good.
we'll
It's
see.
short though. I think
Yeah.
before that they did 10 episode seasons, and I think episode 6 is only 6 episodes.
I can tell you in a second.
But another thing that you may or may not know is that they did some bonus shorts for each episode, or I guess the first 5 episodes of season 6, but you can only watch them on like a phone. So you have to do like the X-ray thing and go to bonus content and you have like a little
that's
extra
dumb.
short. It's worth it though. Like they're
Why
not
would they do that?
They don't really give any extra information, but it's a nice little like look back. They're all talking about like their experiences on a ship and like how a ship functions a little bit, and you kind of get to see
only 6.
so you get to see them kind of work as a crew a little bit and how their dynamic works out. So it's kind of interesting. It's a nice little bonus. I am sad that it is over. It feels very unfinished. Like it seems like there's so much more story to tell, and there's a lot of books. So there's like 9 books. I think
I'm sure you'll get
like the 5th or 6th.
I'm sure you'll get that experience out of the book aspect of it, but
I highly recommend the books. The books actually read. They're different. It's different enough where you can there's still some things you don't quite know that are going to happen. Like, the big points, like nothing big has changed, but a lot of the players and a lot of the characters are subtly different, and it keeps you reading. It's very interesting. Like, if you're a reader, I highly recommend the books.
I'm not, but I'm trying to be.
Okay. Maybe
I
even the
haven't read a book
audiobooks.
in a long time. Yeah, audiobooks might not be too bad, because like if I could work from home and use the hour that I use to commute to like do other stuff, I would be much more inclined to read. But as it sits, I get up in the morning, I take care of my animals, I like shower, go to work, I go to the gym, and then I come home, and by the time I'm home, I like need to shower, I need to cook, I need to eat, I need to like spend some time with Abby.
Yeah.
And then after I'm done with that, I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Even if your commute is short, the prep time for getting like going to work and all the stuff and like preparing for your day outside of your own home takes up a lot of time, and then re-engaging back into your home life because you have to like take off, you change, you have to take care of your animals, do all that other opposite end of the stuff, and then by the time you're like actually sitting down and ready to do something, it's like 6 or 7 o'clock.
Right. So
I see that. Oh my God, you guys and your games. I have not been gaming at all. Like I haven't touched a game in the past like 3 weeks. I don't know why.
Because there's a lot of good ones.
I don't know. I keep on getting stuck. Like I almost feel like I'm too lazy to pick up a controller at this point.
Well, then just use a mouse and keyboard.
That's true. So moving back to some of these hard hitting questions. Everybody on so you were part of a Common Geeking program. And everybody on Common Geeking program had to like apply at a certain point, or at least I know I did. And we had to list out our like domains of nerddom / geekdom. Do you remember what yours were, or what do you perceive yourself as like a nerdy expert in?
At the time, it was comic books and Xbox video games and like a little bit of TV. But now I have not read comics in a long time because A, they're expensive as fuck now. And B, they don't really pay their people well. So all the money that I would be paying doesn't even go to the artists and the writers, really. The other aspect of that is they just keep running out of ideas. So they every time they come up with a new idea that contradicts something that already happened, they have to reset the universe or like make an alternate universe for it to occur in. And I'm really not stoked on that. So I mostly just consume like TV and movies now, video games. I don't really read. I'm trying to read, but I was a lot better about reading in high school because like you had to.
Yeah.
But ever since college, I've just been like, fuck that noise. I'm going to go play Mass Effect.
Yeah, I've definitely dropped off in my reading. I picked up reading again recently. So I'm a little journey into my life. My wife is relatively religious, and she had us sign up for this thing called Seek 2022, which is kind of like Lent, but it's it's before Lent. And the whole point is to give up so they have several parts of it. You're supposed to give up media or technology. You're supposed to go on a specific like fast or reduce or actually eliminate like sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. And then there's another one where you're supposed to like, I can't remember. I think you're supposed to like pledge to read a certain amount of Bible a day. So I had to sign up for something, which was I just got rid of alcohol. Like I don't really drink that much during the week anyway. And sugar. I don't eat that much sugar, and caffeine. I don't even drink coffee. So it was very easy for me to just sign up for that. But Jasmine, she decided that she was going to eliminate all TV and movies.
God damn.
So whenever, and we go back and forth to visit, she is still going, she's still in Air Force training right now. So we're visiting each other every other week and we're trading off. So it's really awkward for me to sit there and like my face in a phone watching TV while she's sitting there reading a book. It feels very awkward and distracting.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought the Expanse books to be like, all right, out for the weekend, I will do your thing and we'll share in your pain. The only issue is, like, I was talking to some of our family afterwards and like, oh, Ryan, why didn't you get rid of technology? I was like, one, I do podcasts and all this other stuff, and I do TikToks that I need to watch TV for. So it'd be very disingenuous if I said I was doing that and still watch TV for TikToks. And then two, there's not enough books in, like, I would go bankrupt in books. I read the entire Expanse book, which is about 550 pages, and I read it in a day and a half.
God damn, dude.
So between the weekend that I was with Jasmine, I read that book and I was done. I had nothing to do by Sunday night. Like once I get engaged with something, like I'm a very fast reader, and also I feel like it's just like I need content to like not be bored. It's probably some like subtle ADHD thing on my part, but I would go probably crazy if I didn't have something to distract me at least a certain chunk of the day.
Yeah. No, I definitely need to consume stuff. Like while I'm at work, I have music and YouTube videos and stuff playing all the time.
Oh yeah. I used to do podcasts. I had a variety of podcasts I would listen to.
Well, that's where I got into Dimension 20 because the first season is all on YouTube. So I like listened to the whole season and I was like, ah, shit, I can't listen to it at work anymore. So I had to like find other stuff, and I've been just watching like Ludwig nonstop.
I mean, do they not have? So what do they do with the other seasons? Do they move it to like Twitch or something? Or
it's on Dropout, their proprietary service now.
Boo!
It's honestly, I will say, Dropout is very good. They have many shows that they like make for the service, and Dimension 20 pumps out multiple podcasts now at this point. So they've got like the Seven, which was still in the Fantasy High universe. They've got a new podcast that's coming out, which is in a sci-fi that's using the 5WSE or 5ESW. It's a Star Wars adaptation of 5E.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
They have another one that's like a murder mystery that takes place in like early Victorian Great Britain type stuff. So there's a lot of content on there, and it's only like $5 a month or something, so it's not too bad. And the one thing that Abby and I really, really like is they have a game show where the rules change every single time. So there's one where like it's three of the Dropout employees, and Sam Reisinger is the owner. He is the one who like puts on the show. So there's one where it's like Sam says, and they have to do Simon says, and Sam says do this, Sam says do this, whatever, and the rules change throughout the thing. There's another one where they all have to like, they're given a prompt and they have to make a sound effect to go along with that prompt, and it's the funniest fucking thing ever. And the most recent one that I watched was the three people had to put together like a Broadway musical together. Like they had a live pianist playing, and they would just improv all the words and stuff, and it was incredible.
That sounds pretty great. I might have to give it a shot because I've watched a lot of Critical Role, not recently, but I've also I listen to a lot of our friend podcasts. We have some friends in the podcast game. I listen to their podcasts, but Dimension 20 is a bit of a blind spot for me. I've only seen an episode or two.
I'm pretty sure the first season is still on YouTube, so you can pick it up there. It's not in the same vein as Critical Role will be. It's less a lot dramatic, more right. It's a lot more lighthearted, but there's still some heavy moments that sometimes happen. But it's comedy because it's a College Humor / Dropout thing. They're all improv actors and comedians,
all relatively funny people together. It's gonna be jokey.
Right. There's a lot of comedy, and Brennan Lee Mulligan is a very good dungeon master. So
yeah, everything I've seen him in has been just an absolute delight. They have the CEO series on College Humor where like he plays a different CEO from a different industry, like Oreos or whatever, and he knocks it out of the park. It's so funny every single time.
He's great. There's one I don't want to ruin it for you, but there's one moment in the show, I think it's in season 2, where one of the party members digs themselves into a hole and tries to like get Brennan to let them leave that hole without much rigmarole, and Brennan just doubles down and he's like, no, you started this shit, you're gonna try to fuck with me, I'm making this happen. It's so good.
It's amazing. I appreciate that as a dungeon master. Sometimes you just gotta stick it to your players. I think it's fair to say that we're both nerds. I feel like everybody on the podcast is a nerd. Were you a nerdy late bloomer, or have you always been kind of a nerd?
I've always been kind of a nerd. I've always played video games. I didn't get like deep into the nerdy stuff until later. Like I was a very surface level nerd, I would say. I dug into comic books at a young age, but I didn't really dig into, like, I played Halo, I played Mass Effect. I didn't dig into the stories much. I just was like, oh, I shoot alien head go boom, yay, pew pew, and that was it. But now I'm trying to like get more into the stories and all that stuff. It's very interesting, and that's why I like all of these sci-fi shows that are a little bit more dark and mysterious and all that. I've been watching, in addition to The Expanse, I've been watching Blacklist, which isn't really sci-fi, but it is like mystery thriller, what the fuck is happening type shit. But I definitely did. And then like when it started getting time to get serious about college and shit, I didn't play a lot of video games and all that stuff, but every now and then I'd like hop on to play Halo. I was big into Guitar Hero and Tony Hawk. Those were like my feel good games, and then every time other people were on, I'd hop on Halo with them. I didn't really get into the nitty gritty until I had a disposable income.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I played video games when I could, even all the way through college, but I didn't think of myself as like a nerd, even though I was a engineer and like did relatively nerdy stuff on the regular. I thought of myself as like, oh, I'm too cool for some of this nerd stuff. And then
but like engineering stuff was, we were doing it for school. It wasn't a hobby. It was our fucking potential career path.
Yeah. I just, I fought the idea that I was a nerd for such a long time. And then once I kind of got out of college, I was like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm graduated, I have my own income. Like, what do I care if somebody else thinks I'm a nerd?
Right. I mean, we were on Baja, like making a fucking dune buggy out of a lawnmower engine is objectively a nerdy thing to do, but
it's a little nerdy.
It was fun. And I remember like every time there was a rocket launch, me and my friends would go down to the Lincoln Memorial to watch it, because you could see, if they were launching out of Maryland, you could see them burn right behind the Washington Monument. You could see the ISS fly overhead every now and then, because it wasn't like super bright in DC.
Yeah, if you're in the middle of the park, you sometimes get away with it. But no, yeah, DC was a magical place. I miss DC. Having moved to Texas now.
Yeah, DC was great.
I miss DC so much. It was such a great city.
Expensive as fuck, but great.
Oh yeah, so expensive. And I don't miss the Metro.
Really? I loved the Metro.
I
took the Metro as much as I could.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I got a little jaded with the Metro. Every time I got on that fucking thing, because I'd have to use it. I used to have to use it on the daily for commuting, but then for my job, I'd have to use it about 2-3 times a week to go to like the Navy Yard or some other place. It just sucks. It's going to be 30 minutes. It's always hot. It's right. There's a particular kind of like muggy hot that happens on a Metro train that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world that I just don't miss.
Yeah, I guess I was always like lucky in the sense that I was never using it to get somewhere on time. I was always using it just to go across town and like go fuck around.
Oh yeah.
I remember when I was like going to dinner on the other side of the fucking White House one time, one of my friends was like, let's take an Uber there. I was like, or we could just take the Metro. It'll get us there like pretty much the same time, and it's $3.
Yeah,
and an Uber was going to be like a lot because it was snowing and like everybody was taking Ubers or whatever. I was like, no, let's just fucking go on the Metro. And they were adamant that they were not going to do that. And I was like, all right, fuck you. I'm going to go on the Metro.
As somebody, because I live in Texas now, I live in San Antonio in the suburbs. It is like trading one bad horse for another, because to go anywhere in the suburbs, there's so much traffic just in the suburbs. It takes like 40 fucking minutes to go anywhere. At least I could turn my brain off before and like read a book or like watch some TV on my phone or something, you know?
I could just like zone out on the Metro, not have to worry about anything. When I'm driving, I get pissed off at all of the people in Arizona because they don't fucking know how to drive, dude. It's so annoying. I get cut off on the regs.
Oh, it's the same in Texas. People are crazy out here. They will speed past you and pull in front of you and then immediately
and then slow down. Yeah.
It's like, what? And it happens all the time. So when I'm driving, I'm driving to San Angelo, which is about 3 hours away from where I am in San Antonio. And there's some stints where it's basically like 2-lane highways, and without fail, and I'll put a comfortable modifier above the speed limit that I feel like it's not too high and I won't get pulled over for. And I'll put on cruise control and it will stay that speed the entire time I'm out there. It never fails. People will pass me and then immediately slow down. So I have to like press on the brake and like it screws up my cruise control. And then I have to wait to pass them again. And then I can go back to my normal speed. It happens like 4 times in a trip. Ugh.
There's this specific corridor between Tucson and Phoenix where it's only a 2-lane highway, and it's like a
like
zero tolerance. No, there's no passing lanes. It's just 2 lanes. And it's a 0 tolerance speed control zone or whatever.
Fuck that.
So everybody's afraid to like go even a couple miles an hour over the speed limit, but it'll be so bad that there will be a line of people trying to pass a semi truck in the right lane that like one person is barely going over the speed limit for, and then somebody in the left lane will cut into the right lane and speed up in front of the line of cars and like try to cut in front further up, because it's literally like an empty right lane up until that semi and all these people waiting in the left lane to fucking pass.
Oh my
it is
God.
A nightmare, and I hate it so much.
We just got to get rid of all government, right?
We just gotta make, like, honestly, the only reason why I want self-driving cars is because everybody else on the road will at least be fucking predictable.
That's true. I talked to Jasmine about that, and like what I want, I was like, I don't care so much about like the responsibility of not driving, or like, oh, you just get in a car and it goes. Like, hopefully things will be a lot faster
and safer.
They'll all be talking to each other and hopefully avoid collisions. And then I like, think about it. You could literally get in the car, turn on the TV or whatever, and it'll be like flying in an airplane. You just arrive where you need to go. And that's the dream right there. Yep. And insurance would hopefully be so fucking low too. Like insurance would be like $10 a month. I mean,
theoretically, but you know they're gonna find a way to fuck us.
Yeah, of course. It's gonna be like $1 million because there's gonna be a supercomputer in all of our cars.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna be. Is all the cars are gonna be way more expensive. So like they have to adjust the price of insurance to compensate for that. It sucks. Honestly, if trains were better, I would take a train to work all day.
All day, every day. Trains aren't too bad.
They're so slow.
There was a train line that went between various places in DC and Maryland. There's like a VRE and the MARC train. Yeah. It was like a double-edged sword. It was so cheap to use, but if there'd be occasions where it would just be the shittiest ride possible. It took forever. There'd be a lane obstruction or something like that, and you might be there for a long time.
Yeah. It's like fucking New York has the same thing. If you go from the city up to Poughkeepsie and then like drive the rest of the way, it's fine. But Amtrak fucking blows. They're so slow. They're so expensive for how slow they are too. It's ridiculous, but nobody rides the train anymore, so they have to up their prices to offset it. But like if you go anywhere foreign, the train system is great. You can get almost anywhere in another country by riding a train. If you wanted to go, I understand that America is obviously a larger country, but like we have not very many high-speed rail systems. All of our rail infrastructure is old as fuck, so it's not like we can increase the speed on those without doing some major overhauls. And it's like not many people actually ride it in the first place, so they're not getting all this money in and they don't think it's worth fixing. But like if there was a high-speed way for me to get across the country that wasn't flying, I would do it.
So I looked into that one time. There was a special report or like an investigation that was done on that, because high-speed rail is super common in Asia. It is super common in Europe, and it's supposed to be like there's a lot of ideas for it happening in America that have never taken off, and there's a lot of ideas for it in like South America. So they did a study, and what they found out is that for whatever reason, to do anything rail related in America, like to build rail projects in America and mega projects in general, it was like 3 to 4 times as expensive as anywhere else in the world. It was even like 2 to 3 times more expensive than Russia, where the corruption is so crazy that like half the money is going directly into the pockets of like private individuals. And they were like, well, let's figure out what it was. And they try to look, it's not corruption, and it's not because like prices are higher or work is higher. It's because there's such a weird conflux of like governmental bodies and private industry that any one of those cogs not showing up for a meeting delays something by like a month. So they found out, like, because they were trying to make Amtrak, or somebody for Amtrak was trying to do some updates to rail. And what would happen, or like New York City was trying to update the Amtrak lines through New York City to make them better and to update them and all that other stuff. So New York City would set up meetings with like the Railroad Commission and Amtrak and all these other things. And then like some of those meetings, Amtrak just wouldn't show up. So they can't have the meeting because Amtrak owns those railways,
Right.
so they can't do anything about it. And like that lost meeting would basically equate into millions of dollars of lost time, effort, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even due to corruption. It's pure ineptitude in the American
Yeah.
system. And it's so frustrating because high-speed lines from like, say, like New York to DC makes so much sense.
They have the Excella or whatever, but it's just so expensive.
It's so expensive.
It's cheaper to fly.
It's so expensive, and it's not high speed. They can go like 40 miles higher than the other trains, but they're still...
Yeah, it's not like a bullet train.
It's not a bullet train, and then they are still ass to front. There are slower trains in front of it and behind it, so it can't speed up. It can speed up for short distances, like when a train pulls off in a different direction, but it's going to eventually meet the ass of another slower train, and it can't go faster.
Right.
So it's just really stupid. All right.
It is stupid. America in general is inept.
Yeah. Let's delve back into some of these nerdy questions before this becomes a travel podcast. We all know we like to podcast and we like D&D. Do you have any other hobbies, and would anybody find them surprising in any way?
I don't think they would find them surprising. I play the drums and the guitar. I am much better at the drums. Guitar is just like way harder to me because you have to read music and you have to have both your hands doing like vastly different things. And the drums, you just have 4 limbs like beating the shit out of something, which is really fun. I go to the gym, I lift weights. I just recently started getting into whiskey. So I have a couple, not like ridiculously impressive bottles of whiskey, but some interesting ones. I think all of those things are not weird in any way, though.
Yeah, I used to be more of a gym rat. I am not a gym rat, and it's been a while. And I'm with you on whiskey. I have recently, maybe the last year or so, I feel like I've like never disliked whiskey, and I would always have some whiskey around.
I used to hate it. I used to absolutely hate whiskey, and then something clicked for some reason.
Yeah, maybe we're just coming into our dad energy.
I think it was also just like I hadn't tried good whiskey. I had tried Jack Daniels and Maker's Mark and shit. Well, okay, Maker's Mark is objectively a good one, but I don't think I like the kind of whiskey that Maker's Mark is. I don't really like the wheated bourbons, but
yeah, I think most of my exposure to like a whiskey, and especially my college years, is like going to a bar and getting like a whiskey sour at like a $5
or like a Jack
rail
and
drink
Coke or something.
Yeah.
So I had Jim, I had Jack, I had all the shitty ones, and I was like, that's it. I don't like whiskey. When actually I didn't like shitty whiskey.
You don't like bottom of the barrel, like plastic jar jug whiskey. Oh man, I don't.
Which is
miss
weird
because
I was watching football last week with one of my friends, and he had a whole bunch of people come over to his house because he's a big Bengals fan. So we were like, all right, we'll watch the game at your place. And somebody brought Gentleman Jack as a mixer with Coke. And I was like, why wouldn't you just get the normal Jack, which is a lot cheaper?
It's classier that way. It's a classy.
I don't care if it's classy. You're making Jack and Coke with it.
Hey, sometimes you got to use quality ingredients to get a quality beverage.
I am learning what I like, and I got a couple interesting bottles. I got this one that's made in Vermont where they take this is specifically a rye mix. So they have this rye, they put half of it into, I think, Bordeaux barrels, some sort of red wine barrel, and the other half stays in its normal oak barrel. And then they don't ship it, they drive it in a big rig across the country to California, where they take the half that's in its original barrel and they transfer it to barrels that were used with, I think it's 805 brewing. Mm-hmm. And it had stouts and like experimental things in there, and they put that half in there, and then they drive it back across the country up to Vermont and they bottle it. So it's half wine aged, half quarter beer aged.
Interesting. I have something not quite like that, but I have so Jefferson whiskey. They have it like something called Jefferson Ocean, where
I know what you're talking about. They put it on boats.
Yeah, they put it on boats, and it's supposed to make it of the sea. I don't know. I like it. I think they have different runs of it, and I think it's on different ships, so it ends up being very different. I remember going to a office party and a coworker's husband being like, hey, you should really try this. This is Jefferson Ocean. They still have it. I was like, oh, okay. And we both like had some Jefferson Ocean together, and we were like talking, and I was like, oh my God, this is probably the best whiskey I've ever had. Jasmine bought me a bottle maybe 6 months later, and it was completely different. It did not taste the same. It's still good, but it did not taste the same at all.
I've heard a similar thing on one of the whiskey YouTube channels I follow. They said that they had a batch that was like incredible, and then they bought 2 other batches after that to like try them out, and they were dog shit. So it's like it's really hit or miss, I feel like.
Yeah, because the one that I had at that dinner party was
Are they single barrels?
Amazing. I don't know. I could probably, if I got up, I could probably check it.
Yeah.
But I feel like
so. Yeah, that's the other thing is like for a single barrel, you are at the mercy of whatever that barrel was. Every other one, they take the barrels and they mix them together. You get a much more consistent product. But like I got one of my local whiskey bars. They had an anniversary event where they had some of the Buffalo Trace Antique collection. So I got to try a bunch of expensive ass whiskeys that I will never get to try ever again in my life, but they were super good. They had the Thomas Handy Sazerac Rye, which was the most delicious whiskey I've ever had in my life. They had a bunch of other rare ones, but they were also selling a Knob Creek Barrel Pick, which is 120 proof. It's fucking gnarly, but it's like at their mercy. They go fly out to Kentucky or wherever the fuck Knob Creek is made. I think it's Kentucky, and then they try that barrel and they're like, yep, I want that one. And if you don't happen to like that barrel, well, you got an entire bottle of whiskey that you fucking hate.
Yeah, I could see that. It's kind of like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yep. That's pretty good. Like it's a box of chocolates for every barrel, and some barrels are really, really good, and other barrels just blow.
Or like a little so-so.
Because like this year, even the Buffalo Trace Antique collection stuff, there was one, the George T. Stag of the year, they just straight up did not release to the public because they said it was not living up to their standards.
Yeah, their barrels probably something wrong with their barrels or the way that they. I mean, there's a lot of also. I mean, depending on how they store it and like the weather that year, there's so many variables. Right. And like freak storms, and if it's unnaturally cold during the summer, it could really mess with your flavor profile. So I could see that.
It is an art.
An what? Is your family into nerdy stuff? But you can include Abby into this. Is your family into nerdy stuff, or are you kind of like the lone nerd in a Chad family?
My brother plays video games. He read comics. He's like into all that stuff. He's not to the same level. It's more like just he's nerd adjacent, I would say. I am definitely the most nerdy. My godfather is the person who got me into comics, though. He has a massive collection from when he was a kid, so I got like a lot of the good stuff, which is why I fell in love with him at first. I was reading like 1980s Wolverines and things like that, a little bit into the 90s, and then that's when I got into like the House of M, the Civil War, all the big comic events that were really good. And then when I was a kid, that was when DC went into the Blackest Night, Brightest Day arc, which I thought was very good. Jeff Johns wrote a lot of really cool stuff. I started getting into the Batman not one shots, but like what's it called? The Killing Joke, and oh my god, there's another one. There's a really, really big event that Batman had. I can't remember off the top of my head though. So I started getting into those mostly because I could go to Barnes & Noble, get like one book for 20-ish bucks, and that would have an entire story in it, and I didn't have to wait week after week after week for comics to come in. So I liked that a lot.
I did that too. I did some Deadpool books, and then I
was really into Watchmen as a kid too. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, I remember
the Watchmen. And V for Vendetta, like the oh my god, I'm blanking on his name. Alan Moore.
Oh yeah, Alan Moore. He's one of the big names. Never got the cred that he deserved, which is unfortunate.
He didn't want the cred. Like every time he was in an interview, he'd be like, "I fucking hate all of you. Don't talk to me."
Yeah, but like so his daughter, I think he passed relatively recently, the last couple of years, but his daughter talks about it occasionally because I think she's in the industry now. And he was like he was a completely different person, but he got screwed by I think it was Marvel. He got screwed by Marvel so bad it completely broke his worldview about comics, and that darkness helped him create some very interesting comics, but it also made him a very bitter person because his heroes betrayed him.
He was also pissed off about the movie adaptations because he didn't think they lived up to the source material. V for Vendetta is a straight up different story.
That is true.
Like it is about totalitarianism and blind faith and things like that, but it's a lot different in the comic. It's the movie is more Americanized. And it tried to shoehorn some political stuff into what was then George W. Bush and 9/11 type stuff, whereas if you read the book, it's much more about the labor movement in England, and it doesn't quite fit if you look at it in that lens. But still, just a great movie, great book.
I mean, the Watchmen movie I think was okay. I mean, I didn't
Watchmen,
like
it was
a little too cheesy for its own good. I think they didn't do a good enough job of
that. Was less the adaptation and more Zack Snyder, in my opinion.
Did you watch the HBO Watchmen series?
Yeah, I did. I thought that was really good.
I thought that was really
I had
good.
no idea what to expect when I was going into that, and I was pleasantly surprised.
I think, I mean, who's to say, because he was kind of he's a bit of a brute when it came to that stuff, but I think he would have probably liked that a lot more than the movie.
I think so, because it didn't take a story that was written for a different situation and shoehorn it in.
Exactly.
It was using that universe and coming up with a way to fit this new story, which was about the American history of being absolutely shitty to people of color.
Yeah.
And making it into a new story, which was very good.
Yeah, and it had a lot of the same tones. There was like political aspects, there was racial aspects, there was
the thing that was crazy to me is like I remember the discord around it being, oh my god, did you guys watch The Watchmen and find out about this thing called the Tulsa Race Massacre or whatever?
Yeah.
I was like, did you not learn that shit in school? Like,
That's
I guess I went to a northern school.
That's the thing. Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to a southern school and I learned about it. It was like literally, and I remember it because it was so wild to me in the context. Like the teacher just talked about, like, I don't even think the teacher talked about it. It was like a side blurb in a history book about like the antebellum period. And it kind of like, we got into like early kind of like post Civil War history. And it talked about that. And it was literally a side blurb. And it wasn't until a couple of years after that, when somebody had talked about it in college, that I Googled it. And I was like, holy shit. Like, why are we not learning more about this?
Yeah, so I mean, I was a history buff as a kid too. Like, I loved the American Revolution and not so much the Civil War, but like the World War II time frames. Those were my bread and butter. But when I got into high school, I was in this accelerated learning program called the International Baccalaureate program, and that was less of an Americanized curriculum and more of a global curriculum. So we didn't cover a lot of American history, but we got more into like not just reading textbooks. It was more like finding sources and things like that. So I remember a lot of the times, every time I would hear about some new thing, I would like go up to the Wikipedia article and start scrolling through and finding different things to read about. So I had gotten exposure to that through that, realized it was super fucked up, and then like it was on this show, and I was like, all right, that's a really great way of bringing this to the masses, I guess. But I was shocked at how few people knew about it.
Yeah, it's shocking. And I mean, and I don't necessarily want to get too political, I guess, but it's going to get worse. Like, they are actively taking out that sort of history out of history books right now under the guise of like all sorts of different lies. And so it's just going to lead to more and more people just being super uninformed about like, and I mean, it's
that's the other thing is people think that college is a liberal, like, brainwashing industry.
I mean, I didn't learn about it in college. I mean, it wasn't in a class that I learned about it. It was like if somebody, we were like at a party or something like that, and we were talking about something, and somebody brought up, we were talking about like weird,
hey, maybe it was me.
Yeah, no, it could have been like we were just talking about like weird stuff in history that like you just don't like is not widely known. As you know, it's one of those things. You know, it's not really a party, but it was like everybody's kind of sitting down drinking, just chit chatting, and like somebody brought that up, and I'm like, I was like, oh, I've heard about that, and he's like, oh, did you hear about this? And I was like, oh no, like I heard that there was like a riot. I didn't know that they dropped bombs from airplanes on like civilian people in a city.
Right. Well, that is the other thing, is it was a misnomer. By calling it a riot, people didn't realize it was a massacre. Like,
yeah, it's definitely mislabeled, and it's labeled in a way that makes it seem like, oh, you know,
it was the black people's fault.
They destroyed their own towns. Like, no, they did not bomb themselves from biplanes, and it's just wild to me. Hopefully,
I do really like that alternate history type stuff though, where you take a historical event and then look at it through a lens of like a superhero movie or something else. I'm really interested in getting into The Man in the High Castle at some point. And what's that other show? The Handmaid's Tale. I gotta watch both of those because I think those would be right up my alley. But I love, like, National Treasure as a kid was my favorite fucking movie. I watched that shit all the time. I loved it.
I do like that form of fiction. I watched some of The Man of the High Castle. I watched the first season, and I think I fell off a little bit. I think it's based off either a book or a comic book series, and a lot of people say that the book or comic book series is really good. And I think if you stay with the series, like on the Amazon series, it's pretty good. But I fell off after the first season.
I know it got canceled, so I don't know if oh yeah, it is based on a Philip K. Dick novel. So obviously Philip K. Dick is a fucking phenomenal writer, but interesting. I didn't realize that Ridley Scott was the person who was producing that.
I didn't know that.
That's kind of sad that it got canceled. But like, the other thing is I really like American political thrillers. Like, Blacklist is one now, but I was super into not Lone Survivor. Was it Lone Survivor?
Lone Survivor.
Designated Survivor.
Yeah,
Designated Survivor. That show was bananas, and I wish it was still going, but they canceled it.
I had mixed feelings about Designated Survivor. I liked it the first couple episodes, but once it became, what is that other show? My wife used to love that show, but it was
Scandal.
It became too much like Scandal. What I really wanted was like a political thriller, like something like The West Wing, but like with an addition of a thriller plot. But it ended up being more like Scandal.
That is how it ends up, though.
Okay.
Like, if you give it time, there becomes that aspect of it.
Because I mean, honestly, I'm
the
dying
first
for
season,
another
right?
West
The
Wing.
first season is a lot of them just trying to uncover the plot that happened, and a lot of people saying, "You're not actually the president. Why should I listen to you?" But like, nothing is going to live up to the West Wing in that aspect.
Yeah.
But I thought that Designated Survivor struck a nice middle ground between the West world and something like an NCIS thriller or something like that.
Man, going 45 minutes in a Dice Populi episode without hearing my voice has got to be kind of refreshing, but this breakaway is here to shatter that illusion. Hello, we're going to wrap up some seasonal stuff, discuss what we did over Season of the Fractures, and talk about what's coming up next. Just going to take a few minutes here to go through all the things we think you really want to hear about, and any more nitty-gritty details you want, you can find on dicepopuli.com, along with links to everything. As always, if you want to get anybody into the show, just send them to dicepopuli.com. If you haven't been, it's very simple. Front page, it's got the podcast feed and an intro episode right there, but it's also got links to our Discord, our Patreon, our Insta, our Twitter, our campaign info, pretty much everything. So that's always your one-stop shop if you want to learn more about the show or get someone else into the fold. So first things first, from our Patreon, as many of you know, we dedicate 20% of Patreon profit to charity. So at the beginning of a season, we set a charity, and the past season, we chose the Trevor Project, for which we have raised $51. So thank you so much for those of you supporting the show. You allow us to make this project largely unencumbered, and you are also putting your money toward good causes. As far as community updates, we have some things to talk about with the Discord. At the beginning of the last season, we brought on a new moderator. Many of you in the community, active in the community, may know Ray. She has done a tremendous job on the Discord, keeping things engaging, coming up with new ideas, one of which we're going to talk about in a moment. But she's also driven some growth. We're at knocking on the door of 100 active community members in our Dice Populi Discord. It's becoming a pretty fun place to not just have like regular chat conversations, but take polls on the show, get little behind the scenes insights onto what's going on, and interact with those of us that make the show on a regular basis. And we always think it's been very fun since Ryan and Matt sort of put the original thing together, and Ray has sort of helped us elevate that. She has also sort of brought us into, I personally have always struggled trying to find ways to like get community engaged around a single thing every season or every once in a while. And Ray sort of had nailed that down pretty easily with our first project, which is the Dice Populi Community Coloring Book, Volume 1. I submitted several images to it myself, and folks in our community went absolutely ham, submitting even more. So we're going to be, you can find a PDF to that on our website. If not right now, then later on the day that this airs, which would be March 30th, 2022. And that's going to be free for everybody to access. It's a PDF, so you can either print it out on paper and color that way, or load it into a coloring app on any sort of, tablet or drawing device, or just on your computer. I think think that it's got a lot of fun art, some representations of things in Dicey Waters that I really, really enjoy. Chowder did some of the cover work. Ray and I edited it, but this was Ray spearheading it. And thank you so much to all the folks that submitted artwork. You are credited in the book. Every artwork is attributed to you. Lizzie, Ray, Tamara, Chowder, Luli, it's absolutely wonderful. I'm so happy that this thing exists, and everyone that wants to can check it out for free. I've long said that we don't have like canon visualizations of things, just because, I want the listeners to be able to visualize the show however fits them, but to be however it fits them, and not sort of break it by saying like, no, this is how I think it looks. So all of these renderings are wonderful interpretations of the show, and we may do another one in the future. Let's see where it goes. But the last thing I want to mention about the past season in the Discord is we use the bot Uge to track our most active participants. So I usually like to go over the top 3, and the winner each season gets crowned the champion of that season, and receives basically a free bit of paraphernalia, either for Dungeons and Dragons or for Dice Populi specifically from our merch store. So at number 3 this time, this is the second season in a row where they've clocked in at number 3, contributor to our art book, longtime fan, wonderful friend of the show, Luli. You have clocked in at number 3. You came to Uge level 22 with 1.7 thousand messages sent, which is impressive. Number 2 is our dear friend Primitive Toast, clocking in at number 2 with also level 22 at 2.1 thousand messages. Pretty big breadth in those levels as you get up there. But number 1 is a relative newcomer to the group, and a very vocal participant in the group. Did some gaming stuff with him. It's been an absolute blast to have you. Erok MTG, winner of Season of the Fractures, Prince/Princess/Monarch of the Fractures. They usually do Prince or Princess in the Discord, but I'll let them decide what title they would like conferred upon them. Erok MTG, you clocked in at level 26 with 1.9 thousand messages here in Season of the Fractures. As the story of Meant to Be has driven some of our characters further and further apart across time and space, it seems as though we have driven you straight to the top. So one of us will be reaching out to you in the next couple of weeks to try to get you set up with a little bit of swag. If you get it, be sure to share it in the Discord and other places just to let people know, I got some cool Dice Populi swag. This place is cool. This show is great. So congratulations to the 3 of you for being near the top. It's been a lot of fun. Honestly, I have a lot of fun going over this list at the end of every season, and it's always such a delightful conversation to talk to the winners and get everything squared away. So regarding previous winners, originally what we did was we sort of took previous winners out of the pool season winners out of the pool to win upcoming seasons, so that the same people didn't just dominate every season after every season. We've been having conversations about how to fold them back in. I believe after a year, we're going to drop people back into the pool to earn things, but also we want to start putting previous. I believe we landed on putting previous winners into the show as NPCs. We already allow people to submit things for the show anyways, but previous winners will get priority for being put into the show as an NPC, and may consult with us for details on how they would like that NPC to appear in the show. So if you have won previous seasons, we invite you to share things in our Dice Populi discussion group and the channel in the Discord as to what you would like to see done in the future. Meant to Be is wrapping up, and I will be doing a lot of whole new stuff that we haven't recorded yet, so there's going to be plenty of room for these things to appear. So we're going to be doing some makeup on that. I will say, though, Ray, our initial season winner, I think back in Season of the Jerry's, I'm so sorry, Ray, but given that you're part of the show, I don't think I can fairly drop you back into the prize pool just because you are incentivized to do a bunch of stuff in the Discord. But everybody else, unless we sign everybody up as moderators, we'll be a community of moderators. Who knows? We'll see. But that's basically the wrap up for what happened last season. Going into next season, we are going to be launching what we call Season of the Origins. This is going to tie very closely into some stuff we've got coming up as far as new episodes. Not a whole lot to drop here, but that is going to be sort of the theme as we wrap up Meant to Be. So for sort of a release roadmap, Meant to Be is going to have 3 more episodes. The first one coming out next week, chapters 65, 66, and 67. The season will be rounded out by 3 new episodes, the premise of which I'm not going to disclose just yet. And that is all going to lead to the 5W at the end of June, which will be a question and answer with Chowder about Meant to Be, our longest adventure, honestly, maybe our most complicated and ambitious adventure, and I think one that ties this world together in ways that we originally just did not conceive of. And I think it's going to be a very fun question and answer session. In that session, we will talk about the season after Season of the Origins and what the final adventure of this Dicey Waters campaign is going to look like. But rest assured, Meant to Be is not the end. In fact, it is merely the beginning. And so that's what the main podcast feed is going to look like. Beyond that, we're always going to try to keep doing more stuff for the Patreon. Entrenched is going to be coming hot and heavy. New episodes of that every month. I think I'm going to do more of those director's commentaries for the Patreon as they come out. The animations, I really want to do more. They are just so tremendously time consuming. And since I am planning a lot of stuff, I might not get around to those very soon. I mentioned before posting some behind the scenes of previous animations, so I may do a little bit of that. But I think some director's commentaries, Chowder and I are planning a little bit of bonus content as well. But to be honest, as far as the Patreon goes, we are always looking to sort of pump up the numbers of patrons for obvious reasons. We have a lot of things we want to do about the show to grow the show, keep it going, get more people into it. And best thing you can do is tell them about the show. The folks that love it, and I mean, this is me just speaking as someone that listens to the podcast. If you enjoy the show and you are capable of supporting it, I mean, the more people that we get into the show, the more likely we can do this stuff. It will allow us to invest in better tools to make the show. I've already been able to put Patreon funds towards a better sound effects library, to some better music effects and things like that. Things that I think have really improved the quality of the show in a tremendous way, beyond just basic podcast hosting stuff. Investing in tools, workstations, hardware, software that improve the quality of the show. So that's a big thing for us. But it's, I mean, beyond asking you to just recommend the show to people, or if it is within your means to support the Patreon, beyond that, there's, that's, just what we can ask for is all we'll do. Our previous community project, again, Ray's Design, was the coloring book. And for this next season, we have decided to do something a little more interactive, something that may get our less artistically inclined people in the community to join up and contribute to this. Based on Ray and Matt's suggestions, we are going to be trying to assemble a community design dungeon. And the current concept for how we're going to execute this is essentially everybody can submit a room or encounter design. It doesn't have to be combat. It could be puzzles. It could be exploration. It could be totally flavor. But having a bunch of people submit individual rooms and then we assemble them into a final product is very fun. And then just like the coloring book, release that to the group. So if you're looking for something to run yourself, you'll have content right there, a playable thing that you can run. And we'll make that available on our website for free. Maybe even do some Patreon or bonus content or re-record in that dungeon as well. We're juggling a lot of ideas. The actual submission process, we're still just looking at the logistics of it. So within the next week or two, honestly, within the next episode or two in the breakaway, I will go ahead and give you the details on how to contribute to that. I'm really excited about that one. I think that's going to be pretty fun. Last detail is our Patreon charity. We are going to be giving funds towards the World Health Organization's medical relief for people in Ukraine affected by the ongoing war, and making sure that folks are getting the support that they need. So 20% of our Patreon revenue is going to go to that cause at the end of Season of the Origins. So again, another reason, if you want to contribute, you can know that your money is not just going to help make the show that you enjoy, but also always to a good cause. So details on this are going to be on dicepopuli.com if you ever need to refer back to them without listening to me ramble for a good 10 minutes or so. And I guess instead of listening to me ramble, why don't we get back to our good friends Ryan and Pat. I will talk to you guys next week in the next episode's breakaway. But for now, thank you so much for everybody who is, participated in our community, who listens to our show. Even if you don't participate, we love you lurkers. Stay out there, stay strong. Congrats to Eric MTG for winning our Discord count this season, getting some swag. And for Season of the Origins, well, let's take it back to the beginning. Why don't we? Let's get this whole thing started fresh and jump back into Between Two Rolls with Ryan and Pat.
Did you watch Vox Machina yet?
Yeah, I did. I watched it today, actually. It was good.
I was very surprised at how much nudity was in The show.
Wait, they had nudity? Did I miss
You
the
didn't.
nudity?
The very first time you see Scanlan,
It's his bare ass.
It's his bare ass, and the woman he's with, her boobs are out.
Oh, I didn't see that part. I wasn't paying attention.
When Scanlan takes the wanted poster back to the group after they get thrown out of the bar, spoilers, I guess, and his pants fall down, there's like a little bit, I mean, the people who are listening might not have, you can see a little bit of the balls.
You see a little ball.
But yeah, I wasn't surprised at how much swearing there was. I have definitely like listened along to Critical Role at one point in my life, but I didn't expect there to be literal titties and dicks.
It's for adults. It's adult time.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I would probably was most interested in the first arc, which is what it's taking over.
Right.
So I think they handled Tiberius's exit well, just by just not even mentioning him and kind of excising an arc where he was pretty prominent.
Who was Tiberius?
He was the dragon guy.
Oh.
So there was like a whole arc. So
his name was not that.
Yeah, it was Tiberius. Tibbs.
What?
Yeah, Tiberius.
In the show?
Yeah. Well, that was the character's name. He was Orion Okaba is the actor's name. But so they kind of
Did I watch a different fucking show than you?
Well, they don't have him. They don't have him in there. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm right. Him. Okay. Yes. Okay, that's what I was asking. Is he wasn't in the show because the dragon guy was General Krieg.
In the context of the show, of the live play show, they start off kind of after Krieg, but they have a different arc where they go like underground and they go to like this dwarven underground city, and they have a whole adventure in the Underdark, and they fight mind flayers and all this other stuff.
And there's another like voice actor who is in the show who is not in the group now.
He got excised from the group for being kind of creepy.
That sucks.
But yeah, so he was in it, and so they just got rid of that section. I guess it was too complicated to kind of weed him out from the events that happened, or maybe they thought it was uninteresting compared to the weird guys, the vampire people. I'm blanking on the Briarwoods.
The Briarwoods, yeah.
So I think that's a good way to handle it. It must suck to be Orion Akaba because he kind of missed out on a huge meal ticket for being kind of a prick.
Don't be a prick.
Don't be a weirdo to women.
I do like the fact that Mercer has more than one role.
Yeah. They basically just have him copy and paste as like guards and background people. I do like that. That's
pretty funny. I also didn't expect Stephanie Beatriz to be in this.
I think she's a friend of theirs, like IRL.
Yeah. Well, I only know her from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so it was interesting to see her. And Gray Griffin. Nobody works harder than that woman. She's in fucking everything, dude. So crazy.
Beatrice might be doing another Dungeons & Dragons thing. So she might be.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I have to look at it because I remember seeing her name with something. But I could be confusing her with another person. But Dungeons and Dragons getting too mainstream. All these celebrities joining in. It's complicating the field. And talking about Dungeons and Dragons and podcasts and stuff, I have another hard biting question, and you can be as honest or unhonest as you wish. If you could change one thing about our podcast, what would it be?
I personally struggle with theater of the mind. So I would appreciate it if we had maps and like tokens and things to move around. That's what I enjoyed about like when I first got into D&D. The DM I had, his name is Sonny Finch. Shout out Sonny. You're probably not listening right now. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but he had a whole bunch of minis and like these set pieces, and we could draw and do all this crazy stuff. We would go into the basement of what was that place called? The engineering house on campus was right next to a frat house. Yeah. God, what can I
don't think it's there anymore. I think they repurposed it.
It sucks. Okay, well, we would go in there. We'd go into the basement, and there was always this like big ass table that people would quote unquote use to study at. They never fucking did. So we would go in there and we'd play D&D.
Nice.
And it would be like 2 a.m, and we'd just be playing. We'd order Wingos for dinner, and like it was just a blast. So I miss that face to face aspect, the physical like things to touch and move and visualize, but I understand obviously why we can't do that, because 2 of us don't even live in
the same
a reasonable but like that's a cool thing about Critical Role is they all get to like literally show up in the same place and play off each other. It's a lot harder to do that when you're just through a computer screen, through a microphone. We don't even use video to like see each other and follow along and stuff. So a lot of times I get distracted. Like it's kind of hard to follow along that way.
I think it's been an issue more recently too, because I know in the Entrenched stuff, we've like sometimes the map matters, and we've had to like I've had to show you guys the map so we can better look at things. And I think with Chowder's adventure with like this big old castle, we're going down these long hallways and all sorts of stuff. It can be very hard to keep track, especially if we're all moving different speeds and doing different things. Like what is happening? And I definitely do feel like maybe I agree with you on that point. The theater of the mind, we're stretching theater of the mind, I think, to its limits.
Right. The game that I play with my friends is in what's that called? Tabletop sim. So that makes it a little bit easier, but it's still, I lack that physical face-to-face interaction.
Oh yeah, I miss in-person games so much. It's been probably 2.5 years since I've had an in-person game. And I used to be one of those people that would like, I would kind of do it up. Like if I was going somewhere, like one of the big things I used to do would be like D&D brunch, where we'd get together like once or twice a month, and somebody would host, and we'd do some potluck stuff. Like one person would bring fruit, another person would bring like champagne and orange juice, and there'd be waffles and stuff. And then I would have a weekly game where I would cook something. Or somebody would order something, and we'd all kind of split cost. And that was so nice because one, you get to hang out with your friends. Two, you get to have, a nice meal, and then you're all like sitting face to face, and there's a certain energy from just like having your friends playing the game together that is really hard to replicate online. I've not been able to capture that, but
I remember we tried to do a game online for a while, and then it just kind of fell apart.
Yeah, we did a couple. So I remember you DMing the Minds of Phandelver. We ran through the Mines of Phandelver, and then I tried to do a Waterdeep game, like Dragon Heist. And after I think we played like 3 times, and then everybody's schedules just kind of collapsed, and it just kind of faded away into darkness.
I'm kind of sad. I really want to play Descent
into
Avernus. But everybody I know who plays regularly has already played it, and they don't want to do it again. And all the people who haven't played it have no ability to like meet up outside of their lives.
Yeah, that's the issue. I haven't played it either. I want to play it deeply. I'm saving it because I might. Oh.
You and me, buddy. Let's do it.
You and me. I might be saying, because I play. Do you remember Tony Lyons?
Yeah.
So I play with him pretty regularly. So that is my backup game. If I kill them in Chult, like Tome of Annihilation, my Chult game I have with them, it's probably going to be Avernus next, because he's like, that was something that he got the book, and he's like, I'm reading through some of this. He didn't read all of it. He read little bits and pieces, and he's like, this is amazing. I must have this now. We should play this. You should kill us all in Chult so we can play this. I was like, well, I have a story I've worked out, so we'll see. But there's like in the back of my mind, when they're doing really badly in a fight, it's like I could just crack open Avernus next week.
No. Well, hey, if you ever need another player.
Oh yeah, for sure. If I ever get that going, I will see what's up.
I love Tony. Tony's cool.
Yeah, Tony's great. We're playing with a bunch of his frat brothers, frat bros, and they're all really nice people. Like they're all pretty bro-y, and I love them dearly. And I did not expect them to be as good at role playing and Dungeons and Dragons as they are. Like when I first met them, it felt like, oh, like, are these bros gonna take to this? And oh my god, did they fucking take to this?
Well, yeah, the people I played D&D with, Sonny, he was playing with a bunch of his fraternity brothers, and I was just like friends with them.
Yeah.
So we all got together. It was very good.
No, it's great.
I think a lot of people look at D&D and they're like, "Oh my god, that's so nerdy." And then when they like start playing it, they're like, "Holy shit, this is fun as fuck. I can do whatever I want."
It's, you just role playing with your friends.
Right.
I mean, I can't wait for an in-person game. I just wish COVID would be over. I wish people could just mask up and get the fucking vaccine and we could be done. But it's just never gonna happen.
It is sad, because at this point it's going to be like the flu, where we need a shot every fucking year, and nobody's
gonna.
All the people who are anti-vax in the first place are going to be like, "You're not stabbing me every year. Why didn't the last stab work?"
Well, you get the flu shot, or hopefully they get the flu shot. So we have been playing for a while. Is there anything that you've picked up as a DM or a player while playing in our podcast? Because we have a very unique way of playing where we all get to play and we also get to DM a section. Has there been anything that you've picked up either as a DM or a player from this diverse group of folks?
I think the only thing that I've picked up from playing in this group is Josh's
jazz DMing,
nonchalant way of making every encounter total party killable.
Yeah, that's true.
So I've started like tweaking my fights to be harder as a result, not necessarily to the same level, but he's like, I legitimately want you to be scared for your character's life at every waking moment.
Yeah.
Which I think is like fair to a bunch of seasoned people like us, but for a lot of other people that would be intimidating.
It was definitely
very
a
fun
certain
though.
Soft touch.
Yeah.
He believed
It
in the
was
heart
fun.
of the dice.
He also gave away magic items willy-nilly, so I did that as well. It was very fun.
Yeah, I appreciated that.
I know. Yeah, and like as a result of just playing more D&D outside of the podcast and listening to more podcasts, I've started to get more into the role play aspect of it. I think not necessarily in the beginning of our show, but I think towards the end of it I'm starting to do more, and especially in the entrenched thing.
Roleplay is such a slippery concept to like nail down.
It's hard for me because when I don't have a different voice, it's hard to separate what I am doing versus what my character is doing.
Mhm.
And I fucking blew dick at that
That New Yorker
Brooklyn,
accent.
New Yorker accent, and I just hated listening to
Oh
myself
my
do it.
God.
But Josh was already doing the high fantasy pompous asshole like type shit,
Yeah.
and that was the only other one that I could do at the time. Entrenched, I have that like loosey-goosey California boy type voice that I can go into. In another campaign that I'm doing in Tabletop Sim with some of my friends, I play a murderous 10-year-old who has gotten experimented on by aliens, and they like made him go through an accelerated version of puberty. So he sounds like this. And it's like the funniest fucking thing, because I start talking to people and they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm 10 years old. I've murdered like 12 people.
No, that's great. So in one of my other games, do you remember Sam?
Yeah.
Sam Hurley.
Yeah.
And when we first started playing, it took a little bit to get her to a place where she could role play, and she's still a little occasionally kind of like, oh, I just want to do this thing, and I try not to push it because I just want my players to be happy. But for some people, it's definitely a
it's hard to get out of that shell.
It's hard to get into that place. It's hard, and I know for Jasmine, it's incredibly hard. I think her main hurdle from playing tabletop RPGs is that she's very self-conscious of looking like a fool, and like the idea of, I think a lot of people are like that. You're very self-conscious. You don't want to look dumb. Trying to balance all of these rules in her head so she's always saying the correct thing, and then also adding a layer of like being a different person on top of that. I think it's very stressful for her. So that's one of the reasons I think she stays clear from it, because like one of her biggest things is like, don't make me look dumb. I don't want anybody like, don't make me look a fool. And like at a certain point, it's like, I mean, it's Dungeons and Dragons. Like you're like, everybody does dumb stuff. I'm not gonna like yell at you or make fun of you, but like, we're all playing make believe here. Like at a certain point, you're going to be riding a pony, and the pony's going to make a fart joke or something. Like it's all going to be weird and dumb.
Or we're going to be trying to break out of a prison, and we're going to turn into an octopus.
Exactly. Like stupid stuff is going to happen.
Or we're going to try to get all these people to to go to one section of town by promising them a raffle to get on our boat.
No, yeah, and it's going to go absolutely great, and it's not going to ruin everything at all. So it sounds like you play at least one or two more tabletop RPGs outside of our main. Outside of our podcast, do you play tabletop RPGs often, or is it just like kind of when you get it in when you can fit it in type of deal?
So the one where I'm playing a murderous 10-year-old, we play on Sundays, and it's the DM is pretty flexible. So like if you can't make it, he'll come up with an excuse why your character wasn't there or whatever. So I try to make it whenever I can, but obviously I'm not there every single Sunday. When it comes down to just like other games, the most I've ever fit in is like a one shot here or there. When it like, I would love to have a game where I could like play in person, but at this point, I just don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, especially because I think like one opportunity for that would be like Adventures League, but I do not think Wizards of the Coast has started up Adventures League yet. I mean, I could be wrong. It might be maybe depending on the local area, but it used to be you could go to a game store. I think it was like Thursday nights or Wednesday nights, and it was basically guaranteed that you would find a table, like an open table that you could drop in, drop out, whatever your schedule was. But I don't know if that's an official thing that they've brought back. We're definitely closer to the end of our podcast than we are at the beginning. do you think you have a favorite arc? And it's okay to say that your arc is the favorite one.
I think I liked Matt's the most, honestly,
Matt's was
because
good.
of the whole
and also your lucky
Groundhog's
guest.
Day.
Your lucky guest that we'll all have to live down.
That was not luck. That was all skill, baby.
That was your Sherlock Holmes moment. It was actually kind of your Sherlock Holmes moment.
The wet boy.
The wet boy.
But yeah.
Oh my god.
I thought Matt's was good. Having us try to have to like figure it out within a single day and like try to get everybody on board with what was going on was interesting. And it was definitely very frustrating at times too, because like we would get so far in a day only to have something go wildly wrong or run out of time, and then we would have to reset and start all over. But we also got to debate a lot of Bates' abilities to turn into animals during that arc, with the dolphin portraying itself as a shark, the octopus being able to squeeze through openings the size of its beak. A lot of nature was found out in that arc, and I thought it was very good.
Yeah, I think that's maybe my favorite arc too, because we had a lot of fun with that one. It had a fun, I mean I've heard of games doing that concept. I think Adventure Zone had something at least semi-similar where they had kind of this looping back and forth. Yeah. But I had never played that form before, and then also it gave me Jerry. Yep. The birth of Jerry, and also didn't Breadman came from that also. So many
Bread was in that. Yeah, that's just like a classic arc for Dice Populi.
So many of the memes of our podcast came from that arc. It is very good.
And it gave Matt his voice for Entrenched.
Oh, that's true. Oh man. And so we play Dungeons and Dragons 5e, of course, and it sounds like the other games you play are Dungeons and Dragons 5e. Is that correct?
Yeah, the only other system I've tried Pathfinder for like a couple sessions, and it was just a nightmare.
It's a fun nightmare, though.
Our DM was not very experienced, so it was very difficult to keep everybody on track. And I first started playing in 4e with that group in the basement of that house that I can't remember the name of. I thought 4e was fine, but obviously it was my first system, so like I didn't have the same experience of all these people who had come from 3.5 and Pathfinder switching over to 4e and realizing that it was like a lot more dumbed down. But as a beginner, I liked the dumbed down aspect of it.
All right, yeah.
But yeah, now it's all 5e.
It's all 5e, and then we play Quest through Entrenched.
Quest, yeah.
Have you tried any other systems, or are those just the only ones that you've been playing?
Those are the only ones that I've played. I know Colin really wants to try Cyberpunk. I don't know if we'll do that. I really want to try some sort of sci-fi system when it comes down time to pick a new one.
Yeah, me too.
The other thing I am interested in is the new stuff that's coming out about 6e, where they are removing the stat bonuses from the races. So now you can just like make any character, any race into any class and do well with it. Whoa. If you're the kind of person who likes doing well with your builds.
The future is now, because it's not even a 6e thing. So they released that gift set that's like 3 books. So it's like Tasha's, and then like
I thought that wasn't out yet though.
It is out. So it's out, but it's in a 3 stack. Like if you want to get it now, you have to spend like $100-something. The individual book, which is like Mordenkainen's Multiverse of Monsters, it's gonna come out in May. But I have a copy. Because I bought the gift set, and that's a thing now. So they changed a bunch of the races, all of them. So there's like 32 races, and it doesn't cover all of them. There's a few that are missing in there, like big ones like dwarves, humans, a couple other things are not in there. I think most of the stuff from the player's handbook is not in there, but it switches out a lot of different stuff. It gives like orcs like they basically redid orcs, goblins, hobgoblins, bugbears to a lesser extent. They added some features to Genasi, but yeah, they changed all that stuff, and none of them have all 32 of those. None of them have a set increase to their stats. Basically in the beginning it says you can choose to increase a stat by 1 and another one by 2, or 3 stats by 1. And they also got rid of languages. So you can choose common and then one additional language across the board for a particular. Because I know for like Aarakocra, because they changed Aarakocra a lot actually. So they got rid of, they still have a fly speed, but instead of 50 feet, it's 30 feet. And then they made their talents better, but they also got rid of it because it used to be that you get Aarakocra, Aran, and common. Now you can only get one of those. Well, common
That
and a
is
one
weird.
extra.
Because, like, I would expect a dwarf to know dwarven, and an elf to know elfish or elven, whatever.
I think that's so they don't really. So they have some elves in there. So they have like elf-like creatures. So like Eladrin are in there. They have a Duragar.
Brought him back. Nice. I loved Eladrin.
Yeah,
I had in 4E. I had an Eladrin sword mage, which was ridiculously fun.
Yeah, they've made him a little punchier. So them and Shatterkai, which are like shadow elves, they used to be like you could teleport once in a long or short rest. Now you can teleport a number of times equal to your proficiency modifier. So you can like jump in and jump out, which is actually really cool. It makes them really good. But no, yeah. So the future is now. I have no idea when those stats are going to be more widely available because I think they're still filtering out into the wild. But the future is now.
Wow. I like it that way, honestly. Like, it feels bad to want to play a certain race in a certain class and, like, have the racial trait give you something that you don't care about, but
yeah,
it's the way she goes sometimes.
It's nice that they're kind of molding it a little bit and it makes it a little more flexible.
Yeah.
So now you can have, it used to be very difficult to have an orc wizard. Now it's the same amount of difficulty for an orc wizard as it is anything else, which I think is kind of nice. They also changed up a bunch of NPC blocks for like enemies. So wizards are completely different now. They have more like spell like abilities and their spell list is way condensed. So I think it's basically to counter spell. So like you can't counterspell a spell like ability, you can only counterspell a spell. So it's a soft nerf to counterspell all the way through, which is something that's recently come up in our games where Chowder is very counterspell crazy, where he's counterspelling my counterspells.
Counterspelling your counterspells, which are counterspelling his counterspell already.
So many counterspells. So I think we've come to a relatively good place here. I think we're hitting the end of our time limit. I have one final parting question that I can't remember if I did this with Colin or not, but it's one of my favorite questions to ask people. What is your most favorite experience as a DM or player? And it could be something. It could be a general thing that you just love to see happen, or it could be a specific event.
There have been a lot of really good moments, honestly. As a DM, I liked watching you guys try to figure out the puzzles that I put in the campaign that I did. The thing that I liked most as a player, I think, happened very recently in one of the games that I play, in the game that I play outside of this. I got an item that I roll every day, and like, I roll a d8, and based on the number I roll, I get an animal companion for that day.
Ooh, I like that.
And as a 10-year-old, I am very short, and everybody like makes fun of me because I'm a short little kid, and they think I'm like weak or whatever. But I got like I got a giant elk.
Ooh.
And I was like, oh my God, I am finally tall. And I jumped up on my giant elk and I rode it around town all day, like just declaring how tall I was. We went to an apple orchard and I picked apples off the tree because I could finally reach.
That's amazing.
And then I didn't realize that at the end of the day, I wouldn't have my elk anymore. It only lasted for a day. So I went to bed with my elk and then I woke up and he was gone and I was just distraught. And I was running around like with my party and I was like, oh my God, Reginald, I will remember you forever. Me. So now every time I use the bag of tricks, I just name whatever animal comes out of it, Reginald 2, Reginald 3, whatever. It's a running gag.
I love that. Like the puzzle thing, when you're talking about the puzzles as a DM, as a player, I love a good puzzle. And as a DM, I really appreciate a well-made puzzle. I thought your puzzles were very well done.
It's hard to come up with something that's like easy enough that they're not going to spend a shit ton of time trying to figure it out, but still like hard enough that it's not a gimme.
Yeah, it's got to be a thinker, but not so much of a thinker that they feel like you get disabused of it and you're like, oh, I don't know, let me roll for it.
Yeah. But that's the thing that I like doing though is like if I, Patrick, am a dumb sack of shit and can't figure it out, but my character is a high int wizard who's like super smart, I would appreciate if the DM would say, your character sees this thing and like give me a hint, you know?
No, yeah, I understand that. It can be hard. Like, it can be hard to come up with a riddle that kind of rings true in that way, that makes sense without like having me like, oh, well, like, because it's so hard to give a hint to a riddle sometimes and it make sense,
right?
Like help the riddle, but not completely give it away. It's such a like a thin bridge to walk across. Ugh.
Yeah. I gotcha.
But anyway, I think this has been a great conversation. So I think we definitely got off subject with a lot of stuff. We talked about a lot of
for sure. Trains,
subjects, but
planes,
that's all
automobiles.
That's all part of this. It's more about learning about us as people, not as like D&D players. So I think this has been a really good conversation, and it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. I enjoyed it with Colin. I think I probably enjoyed this even more because I think I'm a lot closer to you than I am to Colin.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We definitely Colin. I don't know a ton about Colin in general. He's a mystery to me. So unraveling him was interesting.
You should have told me before you were doing it, and I would have given you all these things to like bring up to be like Sean Evans. Which brings me to my other thing: is eventually I will need you to order a whole bunch of hot sauces so we can do spicy waters.
I would do that. I would definitely do that. We could record it. Like we could even do some videos so that people could see the pain and tears in our face.
Oh yeah, I will be crying for sure.
But that is another wrap on Between Two Roles, the podcast where we break the line between person and Dungeons and Dragons player. And we get to that meaty center and figure out who they are as an actual person. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll probably do another one. I got to figure out who I'm going to do next. It's either Matt, Chowder, or maybe I could snag Josh if he's not too busy. We'll see. That might be a surprise. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you have any additional questions that you would like to ask me or Pat, our Discord is available. It's a Dice Populi Discord. Maybe lob a question or two there, and then we could make this an interactive thing.
Go to our Twitter at Dice Populi.
That's also a thing. You could ask us questions on at Dice Populi. We also have an Instagram, which is very similar. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You guys have a great evening or day or whenever you're listening to this. All right, bye.
Bye now.
Come and meet